This is a summary of the Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer. This novel begins with Chaucer himself, and what happens is he wants to go to Canterbury, and he walks into this tavern, and he sees these 29 pilgrims, and everybody in this tavern, everyone has this idea to go to Canterbury. The reason why they want to go to Canterbury, it's because this religious figure by the name of Saint Thomas, he's considered to be a martyr in the novel, and all of these people every year, it's described in the novel that every year a lot of people go to Canterbury. Um, Basically, they go there as kind of like a journey to Mecca, the same way that Muslims go to Mecca. They're doing this same type of pilgrimage thing where they're gonna go to Mecca and get blessings or something like that. That's the idea. That's how the novel begins. That's the basic idea of the novel. So you have these people, 29 people plus Chaucer, and the host of this tavern. The host of the tavern, he comes up with this idea that everybody's gonna have a chance to tell stories, and whoever has the best story is going to get a free dinner, a free lunch, or something like that. So you get a reward for telling a great story. So everybody agrees. Everybody goes to sleep after this agreement, and the next day they all wake up, and they start their journey. So the whole novel just really follows these basically 31 people in their journey to Canterbury, and all of them have to tell a story. Now, the interesting part about this novel is that it's like novels within novels, because every single character in this novel tells a story. Every single character in this novel has this narrative that they have to develop. So, there's a knight, there's a miller, there is several people that are in this novel that are telling stories, and that's what you follow by reading this novel. You follow the stories. Some of them have moral messages. Some of them are to be funny. The Miller, in my perspective, the Miller had the most funny story in this novel. He told the story of this carpenter, that his wife cheated on him, and there's a really funny joke where the wife of this carpenter, she had a lot of people after her, and one of the people that were after her, he came to her window at night, and he was like, saying to her, come out, I need you." And she sticks her butt out the window, and she says to kiss me, and he does that, and then he realizes that he just kissed somebody's butt. So that was pretty funny. I thought that was really funny. There's so many stories within this novel, and that's basically the general summary of this novel. You have these 30 people. The host is not going to tell a story. He's not telling stories. He's going to be the judge. He's going to be, in the novel, he states that he's going to be the person who decides who had the best story. So right away, when they set out on their journey, the knight who is part of their crew, he's the one that starts telling the stories. He tells his story, and that just continues throughout the whole novel. So it's very interesting. The What's another interesting part is that this novel is not complete. Not everybody tells their story. Not everyone finishes their narratives. So in many ways, this book is not complete. Another interesting part of this novel is that there's a lot of spelling errors because in Geoffrey Chaucer's uh, era, I can't speak, but in his era, what happened is there were no spelling rules and grammar rules. Even the punctuation, such as periods, commas, that you might see if you read this book for yourself. like Chaucer didn't put them there. He just wrote freely and he spelled things how they came to him. So in many places he'll spell a word this way, and then 3 pages later he'll spell it another way. So you might find this book a little annoying at some parts because you're like, what is this word? Because it's spelled differently from what you would expect. But you still get the main idea by reading this book. You still get the general view of the stories, of the narratives that he's trying to portray. This book is not that long. It's pretty long, but if you start to read the stories and you start to get the narratives, you start reading it and you get engaged, it won't seem that long to you. But overall, I wish that this book was complete because it was very interesting. Because it's stories within stories within stories, and there are some individuals when they're telling their stories in the novel, they get cut off by other characters. So I have to say that this novel has a lot of characters because the 29 characters, they all have different stories that they have to say, that they have to tell. Plus, they have their own characters within their own stories. So, um, for that reason, this book can be a little bit confusing because if you're trying to keep all the characters in mind, you're going to get confused and you're going to be like, where am I? But overall, this novel is very interesting. It said a lot. Um, you know, at some points, I wish it was written in modern spelling because there are some parts you're like, what is this sentence? What is it trying to say? But overall, you do get what the story is saying, and you get the general idea. So that's the basic summary, a basic summary of this novel. It's a journey to Canterbury where 30 people are telling stories for a prize, and the story is not finished. We don't even get to Canterbury. We don't even get to Mecca. They weren't going to Mecca. I'm just making that an example. They never got there. They just tell their stories, and not all of them tell their stories. So that's what I have to say with this novel. The stories that were told, I found them to be some of them very funny, but some of them very cruel too. Um, a lot of the stories are about infidelity. A lot of the stories are about, um, horror. What I mean by that is, there's this one story that I recall where, um, this man, he cheats two men out of this grain, and he thought that he was being smart. But then these two men come to him and they say that they can't go home today. They have to stay over at his house because it's dark and they don't want to go home in the dark. And this man, he's a miller. Um, he cheats people out of their goods, and then in turn these two men that were staying over at his house for the night, that were lodging at his house, they both defile his house because one of them slept with his daughter and the other one slept with his wife. So there's a lot of moral messages that can say that treat others the way you would want to be treated. I think that's what that story portrays. There are several other stories that portray different things. Some of them are funny, some of them are cruel, some of them are like, um, when you're reading them, you're like, should this happen to another person? With the story of the miller that I was talking about, he stole grain from the men, and they defiled his house. So I'm saying, is that tooth for tooth? Is that eye for eye? I would say it's not, but to other people, maybe it is. But overall, this book is very interesting. I would recommend it to anybody. I think that it really. you know, gives you a different look on how novels should be written, because it wasn't a straight narrative, it wasn't a straight story. It was characters within a novel telling you other stories. So that's my take on this novel. I hope you guys like this summary and review. It's a very basic summary. So thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe. Tell me if this video helped you in any way, and I'll see you guys in the next video.